His name is Dr. Chrix Xu. He's the chairman and CEO of a company called ThermoGenesis Holdings. I know you're getting scared because he said we had one guest that said mission critical and operational. Next guest comes up with ThermoGenesis. They are publicly traded under the stock symbol THMO, and there's a couple of ways to get a hold of them at ThermoGenesis.com. And I want to welcome him into the studio today. How are you, sir? Good to see you.
Very glad to be here.
So, okay, first of all, when you hear thermogenesis, I think of nuclear war and everything ending. Is that what this is about?
Well, originally the company was founded 35 years ago as a refrigerator company.
Oh, thermogenesis.
That's where thermogenesis comes from.
Okay. It's like GE. Thermogenesis, where good things happen, right? Okay, and now it's something
tomorrow better.
So, and you guys you guys are now in the cell and gene therapy (CGT) business, correct?
Yes, the company over the 35 years has evolved. It was a medical device company for the cord blood banking. You know, store the baby's blood.
Yeah.
And it produced lots of automated devices to store that.
Okay.
But now with the new industry moving to cell gene therapy, and hopefully we can share some of the highlights.
Sure.
And that's why we move into this industry.
So talk about efficacy in cell gene therapy is really promising. It's also really expensive unless you can harvest close to the hospital or close to the site. Talk about both of those things because I think both those things are really important when you talk about CGT, correct?
Yeah, you know, to be all honest, I'm an immunologist and I've been in this field for the 30 years, and even surprised me to see the efficacy. Really, cell gene therapy, we are talking about using someone's own cell, like immune cells, to treat cancer. But this has been 30 years until 5 years ago. It shows that using someone's own immune cells, you can treat end stage. What do you define as end stage? People failed radiation, people failed chemo, on deathbed. And turn out.
So the end stage, in some cases, you can solve with cell gene therapy, using almost your own body as the immuno vaccine or whatever you want to call it at that point, correct?
Yes, and that's 93% efficacious for that.
Okay.
That's awesome, right? Very expensive though.
Exactly, unless you're harvesting all of that right in the same room almost, just because it's expensive to store, it's expensive to harvest. Like we've talked to companies about that before. Why wouldn't all of our research be going into this? Because it seems like the panacea for the most horrible disease on earth.
Yes, indeed. Actually, you are right on the spot. There are over 1,000 clinical trials into this. So people are excited to look into therapy for every type of cancer, blood or solid cancer. But the key issue is, no matter how many therapies we found, it's too expensive for ordinary people to use that. And that's one. And the other issue is, lots of patients find out by the time they need to use that, hey, you don't have the immune cells because your radiation and chemotherapy
killed the immune cells.
Killed everything.
Right.
So those two things, you know, making people inaccessible to.
Well, so isn't the answer to pre-harvest those cells prior to getting treated? So let's say you get a diagnosis, which is a horrible day in your life at that point. But before you start chemotherapy, before you start radiation therapy, you harvest some immune cells before that happens. Is that the way to do it?
That's exactly what we are doing. But before
Dr. Sullivan, by the way, don't make eye contact. Just avert your eyes. But that needs to happen, right? And then of course there's storing those cells and so on and so forth.
Yeah. But before we come to here, there was a technical challenge.
Okay.
You wouldn't be able to do that because it takes a technician 4 hours to process just one people.
Okay.
So, hey, if you want to save everybody, how many people you can do?
World's over by then.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. I get it.
We have something new that approved by the FDA that increased the efficiency by 16-fold.
Okay.
That means we are now the only player that's able to do the immune cell banking, so to speak,
right.
to help people to.
So immune cell banking can be done at any stage in life, potentially?
The early, the better, so.
Okay.
But, from 16 to 70, that there's a long stretch of a time your immune system is at its peak. Although after 70, it starts to gradually decay.
But if a young person has a history of cancer in their family, this would be something if
As
it's
they
readily available to them, when it will be readily available to them to go in and bank some cells just in case.
I would highly recommend that. I mean, I'm an immunologist. If you ask me if I banked myself in the 90s, I will tell you no, I haven't.
Well, because it wasn't a thing, though. It didn't exist.
Exactly.
Right?
But if you ask me if I have banked myself cells now, you betcha.
Yeah, okay, talk about this, and that's from Dr. Xu. You betcha. Hashtag you betcha. Talk about this versus stem cell banking and such, because that's a question that's got to come up quite a bit.
Yeah. Those two cells are all your own cells with unique function. Stem cell has a broader function for neurological disease, degenerative disease. Immune cells do one thing good, which is fight against cancer.
Okay.
In terms of when you can store the cells, for stem cell, your best chance is at the birth, when you have the cord blood, cord tissue placenta.
Yeah.
Sorry, you, me, everybody, we don't have this.
Train left the station. Yep.
We have immune cells right now, and is cancer too small? No, it's not. It's still the biggest concern for me, and I think just banking that cells is tremendously useful for the future.
Talk about ThermoGenesis, by the way. Dr. Chrix Xu is our guest today, and he is the CEO and chairman of a publicly traded company called ThermoGenesis Holdings. They are publicly traded under the stock symbol THMO. Talk about exactly what you guys are doing right now. Where do you guys fit into this whole puzzle?
So the company is a medical device company. It was developing all those devices for the cord blood banking industry, for stem cell banking.
Sure.
Unfortunately, it has great technology, but picked the wrong business model.
Yeah.
So it's like holding a golden bowl begging. So to tell you the story,
Okay.
I was a user of their technology. I built my first company based on their technology.
Okay. Right.
However, I made a big fortune, sold it for $300 million, where ThermoGenesis didn't. I turned around, become the CEO.
Mike's figuring out what company he wants you to invest in next, by the way. His hydroponic growing system. So you were a user of the system, so
Yeah.
you have a direct experience with it.
Yeah. So I'm a true believer of the technology, especially in the last few years.
Okay.
It's developing automation technology for cell processing. So it fit in the cell gene therapy because now we know too expensive and unable to bank both cases. ThermoGenesis come in and say, hey, our new technology for automation can reduce the drug price by 50%.
Wow.
Do you think that's useful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you talking up there? Just playing drums. Trace up there going, preach!
He gave it a hell yeah.
Turn the band down for a minute. I'm sorry, doctor. Somebody in the waiting room had a cough.
Yeah, sure.
So okay, wait a second. If you're reducing the price by 50%,
Yeah.
and you add that with the efficacy of 16 times greater in harvesting, or I guess post diagnosis harvesting, that the future's so bright I got to wear shades at that point. It looks like there's promise on the horizon, correct?
Yeah, lots of people don't know that. People are thinking, hey, cell banking, it's cutting edge, top notch. It got to cost a fortune. I mean, I have to pay my beer money, pay everything. How can I afford a cell banking? That's
Right.
second in line.
We've got some footage from over at their labs,
Right,
and
right.
here is Dr. Xu
There's the beer.
spending his beer money on this. So-
Indeed, if I tell you, it costs you only 1 cup of coffee per week, would
Yeah.
you give it a second thought?
Not even a little bit. Not a little bit.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So talk about adoption. Talk about adoption real quick with the whole world, and especially physicians and so on and so forth to get on board, because the pervasive knowledge is it is too cheap. I've heard it is too expensive. It may be experimental. This is 30-year-old technology. There's all those falsities that are going out there. How have you changed the narrative, and how is it happening? Is it actually working?
So, gladly FDA coming in this picture. So since the first approval of CAR T therapy back in 2017, FDA has approved 6 therapies, all CAR T related, for treating different blood cancer. It's not treating everything, still 6 blood cancer.
Wow.
So this is no longer in experimental phase. It's already in approval drug. And there are over 1,000 clinical trials in the pipeline chasing against others. So I think this is a bright future.
Yeah.
So we just have to think ahead. And when such wave, I call this the era of cell gene therapy, when the wave comes in, are we ready? Are we ready in terms of financially supporting ourselves? Are we ready having our own cells to manufacture the drug? The last thing you want to see is, hey, I need this and I don't have it.
It's too late, right? It's too late. Will you come back on the air with us? You're only a few miles up there. You got to come up here, especially. And here's my question: how much beer money does a guy have who sold his company for $300 million? Okay, compare that. Compare that to my Costas paycheck. Oh, you have lots of beer money, don't you?
I'm still drinking malt liquor.
Dr. Chrix Xu, ThermoGenesis Holdings, stock symbol THMO. ThermoGenesis.com. More of us back in a second.